Hey folks, if you're like me, you were stuck at the intermediate level of spinning for a very long time on the plateau of solitude, or I don't know, the chasm of loneliness, and you just couldn't get to that advanced level. I have reached what I consider to be an advanced level for certain three-point patterns and performances. So I wanted to share with you what I learned was holding me back because I genuinely believe we're all very similar, and the things that were holding me back are probably holding you back. I'll also share some tips on how to overcome those obstacles and become an advanced spinner. So let's take a deeper dive into why you're stagnating and what to do about it. The first issue out of 10, I usually break these into lists of 10. The first thing that's holding you back is your focus. So part of every pattern or trick or dance move is the focus. What I mean by that is track how long you go without checking your phone for text, email, social media, random stuff. You should build in focus to be part of the trick from now on. So for example, for poi juggling, I would usually set my goal for a song while I was listening and say, I'm only gonna work on this trick for the duration of that song. And if I made no progress, I didn't go from 4 catches to 5, for example, I would add another song. What tends to happen with this strategy is you hit 45 minutes worth of just adding another song before you take a break. And the key to doing that is to have music that you actually like. So you put your headphones in, you put it on a station you like or a playlist, or like ideally a long mix from a festival or something, and you just do not check your phone and you don't talk to anyone until you've made progress. That could be one additional catch. It could be landing the trick 2 times in a row instead of 1, as long as there's some trackable progress. Unfortunately, a lot of us optimized our lives for dopamine, not depth. And we're slaves to that little molecule in our brain. I don't know that much about neurochemistry, but we are effectively slaves to dopamine by our own design, right? We scroll too much. That's at the core of this. So never let scrolling or texting others become a part of your flow practice. It's interesting because at a beginner level, you can be interrupted every couple minutes and it doesn't really interrupt your progress that much. At an intermediate level, however, you start to realize how important focus and dedication is to leveling up. At an advanced level, they already know this, but transitioning from hobbyist to professional or an extremely dedicated hobbyist, you'll realize that focus is the #1 thing preventing you from leveling up. I'm really curious on your strategies for this. For me, I just have to put my phone way off to the side. I can't have it in my pocket, and I have to commit to doing a whole song and then adding more songs. I would love to hear your techniques on this one. I didn't go super deep into it, but this is a deep one. This is what plagues all of humanity. We spend too much time on screens, and we sacrifice progress as a result. The second reason that you're stuck as an intermediate flow artist is your environment. Very much like your mental environment, as we discussed focus. Now let's talk about your physical environment. So I've set up a flow room for myself where I just don't have any furniture, and that's what I've always done. So when it's rainy or cloudy, or I can't go outside for some reason, my environment is going to allow me to practice. I didn't have that for most of my life. I had low ceilings, and I had to go to the racquetball room at the gym. So I would go to basically an all blank room. I call it the fishbowl because everyone can see into the racquetball room. And I would just go into an environment where the only thing to stimulate me or distract me was juggling. This is tricky because a lot of us don't live near a gym. It's not feasible. All we have is our living room or bedroom. So how do we set that up? Well, you have to keep it clean. Clutter distracts us, going back to topic number 1 of focus, and unfinished tasks prevent our brain from focusing on finishing the task of learning the new pattern or trick or dance move. This is so frustrating because as artists, we make like what I call creative messes all the time. Our coloring supplies, paint, recording equipment, obviously flow props, you name it. We constantly have unfinished tasks because that's the life of the artist. Unfortunately, this really gets in the way. So if you make creative messes at home and those unfinished tasks are sitting around you, they can actually get in the way of your ability to focus and level up. So what I wrote down was elite jugglers train in racquetball rooms, beaches, and blank dance studios. If you're always training in the same space, you have too much going on. And furthermore, studies have shown that you learn faster in new environments because you have new stimulus. You'll find that training in a blank racquetball room, even with no headphones sometimes, just the sound of the props hitting the floor, you'll actually level up faster because, well, we're very physical creatures and our physical environment impacts us more than we care to admit. So I love seeing people post from their living room a lot, and I love seeing people post from their bedroom. But if it's a messy background, there's a good chance that they're not going to progress as fast as somebody who's posting from a racquetball room. And that may be coming from a place of privilege. It is $45 a month for LA Fitness. But 24-hour fitness is like $25 a month. And it's capitalism, unfortunately. We do have to invest in our physical space in order for our mental space to level up at the same time. So I'm curious what kind of environments you've set up to eliminate distractions. I wrote, a blank space creates a blank mind. And on a blank mind, a blank canvas, you can fit more art than one that already has something there. Yeah, focus is golden. I don't know how else to pair the concept of focus without a focused environment. Topics 1 and 2 go hand in hand. These are in the highest priority category for leveling up. If you don't eliminate distractions and create an environment that's pretty blank, I don't think you'll be able to level up as much as the elite artists who do that. Not that you're competitive, but comparing ourselves to others allows us to see possible pathways that we can take. What you'll notice about the really elite artists is they often post against a blank background, and you can tell it's in some type of dance studio where they train every day. Okay, the third topic is that you haven't invested, so you don't prioritize. And I'm talking about money in the form of Patreon here. Did I use Patreon during my come up? No, but I wish I did. The folks who are on Patreon are fully dedicated to giving you timely and concise and like brutally honest feedback about how to improve as a flow artist. Yes, the whole appeal of flow arts is that you can teach yourself and level up at home, but it's just a fast track to spend the 10 or 20 bucks even for 1 month of premium access to some of these artists. Every single prop has an artist that could teach you the thing you're working on. And I mean, this is kind of slimy, but if you want their paid content, you can just buy access to it for a month, watch all the videos and screen record it, and then cancel your subscription. Should you do that? I don't know, but it's the technology available to you. You do have to invest that 1 month, which is good for the creator because they wouldn't have gotten that otherwise. And if you share that content, you're a slime bag. But if you just do it for yourself, hey, you paid for it once. The app doesn't have a built-in screen record blocker, so obviously Patreon doesn't care that much about it. You can even ask the creators, hey, I'm just gonna buy the 1 month. Do you care if I screen record these? They'll be like, they'll be fine with it. What you wanna do is during that month that you are paying, or hopefully you can afford 2 or 3 months, right? Send as many videos of your progress to the creator as you can. They will give you typically direct feedback on how to improve. And when you're a beginner, you can watch YouTube tutorials, screenshot Instagram, and figure out a lot of the basics for yourself. But when you're trying to become advanced, and you'll see this in a later topic, you absolutely need the input from other people to describe what you're doing wrong and show you the drills on how to level up. It's just so much faster if you get, I call it professional feedback. Okay, this next one's kind of nerdy and fun and weird. This is where you're starving your brain of oxygen. I repeat, the reason you're not leveling up is because you're not intentionally breathing to expel all the carbon dioxide out of your blood. So I trained as a cave diver for a long time, and I learned a lot of breath techniques and like heartbeat control techniques that apply directly to juggling training. I noticed that on a lot of difficult patterns, I was holding my breath in such a way that I just didn't have enough oxygen, or more commonly, I had too much carbon dioxide. So just like in yoga, they teach you a lot of breathing techniques. The same goes for flow practice. You may be trying the trick or the move too many times in rapid succession, and then you're not breathing enough in between in such a way to like equalize your oxygen levels. The reason I noticed this is because I was really dehydrated and caffeinated, and I was like holding my breath, and I just reflected on the techniques I used when I was cave diving to get to double my cave diving, my breath holding abilities. And I realized I have to sit down in between attempts of like juggling patterns and close my eyes. And I do neck rolls, and I even lay on my back and like spread out my arms. I don't know if it opens up my diaphragm, but I just concentrate on taking extremely deep breaths, lowering my heart rate until I feel like there's no carbon dioxide left in my blood. It's a very subtle thing, but it's just like lifting weights too. You have to take breaks in between sets or your muscles aren't ready for it. While we aren't lifting really heavy weights, we are lifting some weight, and muscles fatigue after probably, 10 to 20 reps or 10 to 20 attempts. And just try it for yourself a couple times. You'll notice that you'll level up way faster when you include breath work as part of your practice. The fifth reason you're not leveling up is because you're not training at the edge of your abilities. This one's pretty subtle. It's where you stay in your comfort zone and you basically do what feels good instead of prioritizing what feels good down the road. You're staying in the comfort zone because you're flowing to feel good. You're not actually flowing to level up. Something I noticed about really good jugglers is no matter how good they get, they're always dropping every 10 seconds anyway. Does that make sense? No matter what, they're always training something new. Unless, of course, they're training for an act and they're trying to clean something up. That's very intentional, and if you're doing that, that's totally separate from this. But if you're actually trying to level up, you should be dropping or messing up every 10 to 30 seconds, I would say. Especially as part of a sequence. If you nail the sequence first try, you're not really at the edge of your abilities. Really good flow artists take probably 10 to 100 tries to get a clean, challenging sequence. And that's because they're training at the edge. In the world of English education, we called it the zone of proximal development. It's where you struggle, but with somebody else, you can level up. And you can tell that a student is learning if they're making mistakes. So this is a subtle one. I find that you want to train where you're dropping at a steady ratio, right? And this requires self-reflection. Sometimes filming yourself, sometimes not, but just paying attention and asking yourself, am I messing up a lot? If you're not learning something new. Now, the other part of not training at the edge is when students go too far ahead. They jump too far ahead and then they quit. They try something like with Seb's mess, for example. They don't train at the edge, which would be like the two-poi juggling drill, or training it with balls or clubs or something. It looks easy when the pros do it, so you try it and it's not easy and then you give up. That is tragic because what the heck? What are you doing? Just do the simpler version with the consistent drop ratio. A lot of jugglers get to the point where they're constantly trying the trick with 3 objects. For some people it works, but for people like me, training it for months or even years with 2 out of the 3 objects is required. Pay attention to the edge. What is the drop ratio? Like I said, it's honestly every 10 seconds for me when I'm trying something new, or like I can just barely unlock the pattern. I've leveled up a lot in the past years, and it's because I committed to staying at the edge. Every couple songs, I'll switch it up and like dance for fun. But typically for an hour each day, I'm training at the edge. And I know that's why I've leveled up so much recently. The 6th topic is that your equipment is holding you back. You're not leveling up, let's say with a staff, because you have really slippery grip. You see somebody running the Matrix, and it's because their staff has gecko grip from Flow on Fire, or it has that silicone tube grip from Ninja Pirate. If you're using cork grip that's been like clapped out and, has dust and dirt and has been degraded over the years, your equipment is holding you back. And it's like throwing money at a problem doesn't feel good, but in this capitalist world we live in, you do have to invest in your props. My favorite example of this is how much easier it is to unlock poi juggling tricks with fresh static tethers. They just hold their shape so much more. Like after you use them so many times, especially doing as many like hard spiral wraps as I do, they lose their stiffness. And when you're training a lot of no beat patterns, you need them to stay rigid. The same goes for hula hoops that get bent, triple staffs that get bent, grip that gets destroyed, LEDs that are faltering if you want to study the trails, chips that get beaten up, batteries that get degraded over time, fire heads that get degraded. These are consumables, right? These are not permanent. Props should be permanent, but they are not. We're beating them up. And despite using things like silicone or Kevlar, things that are known for their durability, they do get beaten up. So Bo Juggler put out a video on how often he replaces his poi tethers for juggling, and it's a lot sooner than I had realized. And so I committed to saving up a budget each year to replace my poi tethers, and as soon as I replace those things, I always level up a new trick. It sucks, but it's just the reality. And if you want to level up faster, consider upgrading your equipment once a year. And when you do, really train at the edge and pay attention to how much of a benefit it is. And when you do, please share. Please tell people around you that if they want to level up, they can expect to see results if they too invest in their equipment. I want us all to grow together. I don't just want some people to get better while others don't. I want to open source all these techniques so we can all, a rising tide raises all ships. That's how I feel. You can hear it from me. Maybe you feel something, maybe you feel nothing. But someone who looks up to you hears it from you, and all of a sudden the advice makes sense. So the next topic is you're training alone when you shouldn't be. I wrote that solo grinding only works up to a point. I'm really grateful and blessed to live in Portland, where I can train with like some absolute OG heavy hitting jugglers who know how to pass and do some really complex patterns that they've invented or mastered. I moved here for that reason. I knew that training around others and hiring them for private lessons, performing with them, making videos with them, watching them perform, and performing for them, would motivate me to do better. So I prioritize every single week. I try to train with a different artist. Passing clubs, passing sticks, passing poi, doing partner weaves, doing Shiva passing, doing tunneling, doing dance moves together, orbiting each other, and like partner acro even. Unfortunately, for a lot of you, you live in a city where this is not possible. You may have to train a protege for 3 years before they can actually like level up parallel to you. That's the nature of humanity right now, is living in a city allows you to level up certain skills way more. Simply put, like hip hop performing, if you're in a city with a robust hip hop scene, you're gonna go out to those events and see those folks leveling up together. Their stagecraft, their music mixing, the production. With flow arts, it's very similar, right? If you're in a city where you can train with other people, especially weekly, is super important because you see what you want to see. Maybe you film it in slow motion, then you take it home and do your homework each night so that each week you can show off your progress. You really do need real-time critique and exposure to elite spinners who can give you like micro adjustments. I call it social acceleration, and I just say that skill compounds socially. We're social creatures, and if you're always just grinding in your living room, it's highly unlikely you're leveraging your whole brain, right? You know, the whole thing about you only use 10% of your brain. I think mirror neurons are part of the 90% that you're not using when you train alone. Even if you have a mirror and you film yourself and you have the intention of improving, seeing someone else do it sets the precedent for your brain that you should be doing it in that moment. And especially if that artist is a good teacher, they're going to give you the micro adjustments you need to improve like your grip, your stance, your timing, your placement, or even how to upgrade your props, like I previously mentioned. So if you're an introvert, I highly encourage you to go train at the edge in a social setting at least weekly. And if you have absolutely no way to get there to meet up at a jam, you'll have to do it digitally. I mean, training with someone in real time is incredibly important. If you don't have someone who's willing to do it for free, perhaps you can set up a private lesson. One of my friends has a private lesson every Saturday morning. He sets up the tripod, and for 2 hours, for $60 exchanged, they go back and forth and talk about what they see each other doing. It is way more effective than just training by yourself. So the 8th topic and the 8th reason you're not leveling up is because you're performing instead of practicing. This one took me a while because I had to flex that I was traveling a lot, and I would just do the wall plank cascade, a basic poi juggling pattern in a bunch of different locations because I liked taking pictures at those locations. And instead of like training at each location and working on the pattern and enjoying the new environment, like I previously mentioned, leveraging the novelty to level up, I was just flexing that I was traveling. And that's okay. I mean, it's part of everyone's journey. But after a while, I realized that I wasn't leveling up because I wasn't training in those new environments. So it feels productive to do this, and sometimes you'll include one little variation, but it's not actually as productive. Like, let's say you go on a hike. It's not as productive as getting to the top of the mountain and actually like training for a little bit and then filming. Now, if you're constrained by time, you either can't level up in that new environment or you have to budget your time a little bit differently. This is a fun one because as flow artists, we like to show our best tricks wherever we go. We like to flex that we're traveling. We like to show a cool combo that we can nail, that we can absolutely just crush. But I encourage you to actually train in those new environments for even just 15 minutes before you film. Do not bust out the tripod and camera. Just focus on leveling up in that new environment, and you'll surprise yourself how much you learn just by being in a new environment. So if you're performing instead of practicing when you go out and film clips, I encourage you to do both from now on and really train at the edge. Normalize for yourself like dropping in a public environment where people can see you. It's a very strange technique to do this. And those who do it don't look cool at the beginning of the session. They look kind of silly because they're dropping so much. But they know in their mind, deep in their mind, that training in a new environment is going to lead to results faster than training in the same environment. So the 9th reason that you're stuck on that plateau is because you're not training the simplified version of the pattern. Going back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of artists would really benefit from training like this morning, for example. I sent somebody a video of how to unlock a poi juggling pattern using balls instead of just poi. And what I've found is a lot of artists don't want to do the simplified version of something. They want to jump right in. They're jumping too far ahead and then quitting. Now, what I wrote is trying to learn complex patterns before isolating fundamentals is inefficient. I would also include like warming up in this. A lot of flow artists don't warm up, and they don't do like the big arm circles or the ball juggling patterns or the dance move without the prop. They jump right in, and it's like, I don't know, trying to lift too much weight without warming up. It's just going to injure you and discourage you. So warm up, do the simplified version of it. Even if you're doing a juggling pattern, do it with one. We typically agree like 50 times, or the duration of the first half of a regular song, before you do it with two. And you're probably going to train the two poi or the two club or the two ball version for like weeks, months, or years before you do the full juggling pattern of it. Now, if you're not a juggler, you can condense the time frame. It could be 30 seconds. But the reason you're not leveling up is because you're not building really, really tight muscle memory. At the top level, the adjustments are like nano and micro adjustments. And in order to make those, you have to really focus on the prop path without being distracted. You have to do simple slow motion versions of it first before you do the fast, true version of it. A lot of these topics are kind of tying together, but I just wanted to let you know, if you're not doing the simplified version of it, you're missing the opportunity to train the fundamentals. And at an elite level, they train fundamentals a lot more than you'd think. They sit there with one poi or one hoop, making sure that they have the form super clean before they ever jump into doing the full performative version of it. The last reason that you're stuck on that plateau as a flow artist is because you are not training cross-discipline. You're only training with one or two props, your main props. As I became the flow arts curator, I purchased every single prop available. Everyone is gonna think this is crazy of me to share this, but I have spent over 6 figures on props and performance gear. Now, I've bought and sold a lot of that, and a lot of it was to resell it, but I've tried out every single prop on the market to expand and contract, right? I expanded into Boogang, found out I didn't like it, and then sold them. I expanded into double staffs, found out I prefer single staff or triple staff, and then kind of hung up that practice. What I found is that all flow arts are a lot more similar than you think. So let's look at some examples of cross-training and where you want to use it. So I already mentioned juggling. You want to start with balls or bean bags, then move to clubs, then perhaps triple staffs, and then eventually poi. When it comes to hoops, you want to practice with bigger ones that do big slow movements and then move to smaller ones. When it comes to triple staffs, I recommend using what are called just sticks, where they have flowers at the end. So they're like mini dragon staffs, and they roll across your body in a very slow and controlled way before you move to the trendy, just totally smooth stick style. They're so much faster. In tricks like the chest cascade or the French cascade, it's a lot easier to do with slower props. So, and I hate to always bring everything back to juggling, but when I juggle now, I bring balls, clubs, triple staffs, and poi with me when I'm working on no beat patterns, for example. And this totally applies to all other props. Like dragon staff, for example. You should also bring a regular staff, and you should also bring smaller staffs. It's going to relieve your shoulder because dragon staffs can be really heavy, and learning it with a contact staff, especially with flowers, will allow you to see where the prop continues its momentum or reverses its momentum, right? Understanding the ways to switch momentum will allow you to understand that that's impossible with a dragon and how it's going to climb up your neck, right? Without a bunch of visuals for this is all just conversational. But I found that over the years, there's just so many little things that cross-prop training has helped me with. 2 poi one-hand tricks, for example. I hold the club sticking out of my thumb side and then the poi sticking out of my pinky side. This way, during the extensions, there's an anti-spin and an extension in those hybrids. Holding a club is way easier because you can just hold it vertically and it won't flop down. Another example is learning weaves, specifically the 3-beat weaves, is way easier with poi and clubs than it is with hoops because there's this crazy grip switch. And so learning the rhythm is easier with those props first. So make some sock poi, learn the reverse 3-beat weave with poi, and then you're ready to do it with hoops. It is really sad when I see hoopers who can't do the 3-beat weave because they're they get all hung up trying to learn it with hoops. I put some floppy sock boy in their hand and they can get it in like minutes. And then they're 80% of the way there. I don't know if it's a time thing or a pride thing, or it could be a budget thing, but I encourage you to get more props. They're not that expensive, and the gains you will have from cross-prop training is undeniable. So those are the reasons you're stuck at an intermediate level. They were the reasons I was stuck, and only through journaling and long, painful conversations with myself did I realize how to get out of that mess. If you're like me and you really want to reach that elite level so that when you look in the mirror, you feel pride and confidence, let me know what you think. Let me know which of these techniques are great and which ones stink. I think that there's not enough conversations happening about how to level up. I think there's a lot of gatekeeping, even though there's a lot of tutorials. We don't describe the psychology and the habits we use to get there. We just show the raw technique and expect others to find an efficient path. Well, I'm here to clear that path and bring you along with me. If you like what you see, like and subscribe, and feel free to reach out. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you level up.